started with Joan. Yeah. I don't even, I started being a militant vegan. I am no longer a militant vegan. I was. And I think I started late, though, around age 35. I was vegetarian. Even read the book by John Robbins, Diet for a New America, and I still wouldn't even, it didn't hit me about the dairy, and I continued to eat dairy, I think, for almost 10 more years, and then full vegan since 2003. 95 vegetarian, 2003 vegan. Go ahead. And I made my entire family miserable at every holiday and get-together by pointing everything out. Yeah. Because Joan used to ask me all the time, why was I going vegan? And sometimes I would say, you mean plant-based? And, she wanted it to be 100% about the animals. And I said, it's a lot about the animals, but for health reasons, too. We are nurses, and I thought for health reasons it would be good as well. When she was in her militant phase, that was not an okay answer. But it is now. Everything's okay. And even if people go at a slower pace, I know people get intolerant of that. But as long as you're going in that direction, I think it's good. Unless I worked at the slaughterhouse. Sorry, it would be closed, and I would be arrested.
So your initial start was off the back of kind of an animal activist angle, and the health bit came later.
Yes. Yeah, I was surprised at the health. I didn't even know that there was a health benefit because, of course, I ate high fructose corn syrup.
Yes.
Even though I was vegan, I was like, oh, high fructose corn syrup's vegan, so I continued to eat that for a while as well. But yeah, I mean, even my body shape shifted. I was blown away. I think we were both heavy thigh, and our arms, speak for ourselves. My arms were as thin as like the microphone thing, the thing. And I always wore long sleeves, and I used to lie and tell everybody, oh, I'm freezing, because I would never show my arms. And being vegan, my arms became a normal size. Notice I won't show them. And my thighs became thinner. It was bizarre. So it was nice. I mean, that's not that healthy. Well, one of the better things that I think that happened to both of us, because so we were 5'9" at our tallest, 5'9". You can figure that one out. And then we were meat eaters growing up and eating, processed foods, and we shrunk by 1/4 of an inch.
Yeah.
And then a year or so into being vegan, we both gained that height back. Yeah. Actually. Of course, the Western medicine doctors don't believe you, but we know, because our dad was a carpenter and he measured us incessantly.
Really?
Yeah. Yes, we got our bone density back.
I see. So this was a bone density thing.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I've never heard anybody say they got taller because of veganism. There's another benefit we should add to the list.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Because our father kept shrinking, huh?
Yes.
I mean, towards the end of their life, they were vegan, but he didn't know he was vegan. Our mom knew.
Yeah.
He had dementia.
Yeah.
Just feeding him vegan. But yeah, he shrunk. But yeah, I was upset that I gained it back. I never wanted to be 5'9". I liked Kate Moss, 5'7"-ish. Then wear heels and still not look like Godzilla. But anyway, yeah, I was bummed, but I'm okay with gaining the height back. And then there's all that literature about within minutes of eating a burger, your arteries are more stiff and your blood pressure might be getting higher, etc. Your immune system might even be affected. And then when you go plant-based, how those things can start reversing. So there truly are there's lots of literature about being plant-based and health.
And from the, coming at it from your backgrounds within therapy, mental health, etc., how, and I'm cautious to say how closely linked as, plant-based diet and the mood, etc., because I can imagine, like you alluded to there, you could go high fructose corn syrup only, claim you're vegan, and probably not feel all of the benefits from a mental health standpoint and mood and all the rest of it. But is there an intrinsic link between a plant-based diet and good mental health in your experiences?
Absolutely. There's peer-reviewed journal articles about inflammation. So everything's about inflammation now. And with depression, they're saying you have inflammation within your body. So if you heard of Dr. Sebi, he has this whole diet. He calls it electrical. Western medicine says it's an anti-inflammatory diet for your health. We call it, I'll speak for myself, I call it alkaline. Just go, in fact, Ross Bridgeford from the UK, I have him, he calls it alkaline diet. Well, Dr. Sebi calls it an electrical diet. And if you compare the three diets, very similar, and it's plant-based. So it doesn't include high sugar. So yeah, you want to leave the high fructose corn syrup out. But definitely when people change their diets, we've had patients drop out of treatment because like, Joan, I feel so much better. And, maybe it's not that clinical case, but even suicidal, I mean, you can change.
Well, I'll just speak for myself because I love to share that I suffered from depression, even as a kid. And I was an absolute sugar addict. I was trying to go over, like, what was I eating as a kid? And maybe the peanut butter, but it had high fructose corn syrup or hydrogenated oils in it. So, no, my diet was terrible growing up. And it wasn't until I started changing my diet that I started noticing that my sadness or dips into horrible depression, they didn't dip as far in. And also you get that little bit of motivation now to get some treatment. But one of the things I like to tell people, because everybody wants science, nobody they want, Western medicine to fix everything through science. Well, the huge topic right now in the States and probably in the UK is the gut-brain connection.
Yes.
And of course, the Asian culture had it thousands of years ago that they said the GI system was the most important organ. And right now, when I think back on the stuff I ate, I realize that I was starving the good bacteria balance in my gut.
Yep.
And what happens is the bacteria you don't want are going to thrive. And then how are you going to communicate with the entire body if, for example, I don't know if people know this, but there are many more serotonin receptors below the neck than there are above the neck. And with the gut-brain discussion, they're finding out that the serotonin, dopamine, and et cetera, they're produced in higher amounts in your gut. And if you don't have healthy serotonin, for example, and somebody gives me Prozac, I could take all the Prozac in the world, but it's not going to be able to act upon this very unhealthy and limited supply of serotonin.
Yeah.
So we got to feed that gut. And that's the fiber-rich foods in our plant-based diets in veganism.
So talking about the fiber-rich, what the fiber-rich diet, what is the kind of the key building blocks of a healthy plant-based diet from a point of view of kind of that gut-brain connection and protecting your mental health?
Well, fruits and vegetables, of course, and everybody thinks that when you say you're vegan, they say, you know what they love to say?
They say, I like salad too? Is
Yeah,
that what they say?
they say,
I hate salad.
I like salad too. And Joan's response, which I absolutely love, because Joan has always
It's the
been
last thing I'm going to
Joan
order on the
has
menu.
been a normal weight. She's never had to diet in her entire life. And she
Salad,
says, I hate
please.
salad. So yes, we want our fruits and our vegetables, but it seems like the fad diets nowadays are saying no carbs. And of
we
course,
love carbohydrates.
the white processed stuff is not good for you, but one of the things that's going to feed that good bacteria are your healthy grains and legumes. And there are so many diets that are taking grains and legumes out of their diet, and they're just starving. They're actually starving to death.
And they're
starving.
obese. They are obese Americans walking around. Their hair is extremely unhealthy. They're starving.
Yes.
They're literally hungry, yet they're obese. And that's what's wrong. It's all so wrong. You know what I don't like is when people say, yeah, but I'm going to eat the real food. I'm eating the real food. Don't say that's the fake, whatever they say, that's fake, whatever. I can't. I have intolerance for that. I actually have to
take a pill or something to chill before I go to a holiday.
And you know, in sort of Western culture, certainly in the UK, I'm sure it's exactly the same in the US. We are very quick to diagnose and medicate all kinds of conditions. You know, whether they're mental, physical, whatever. That is our number one. You know, support big pharma, like is the root. That's what we do. How far away do you think, you know, we are from establishing that a good part of any you know, prognosis and treatment for a patient is their diet?
Oh boy.
Far.
Can I just tell you a story that one of our I'll just say it's Joan's ex-husband. He's been one of our colleagues and still a friend. So anyway, just to give you an example of how long it takes Western medicine or conservative doctors in general, nurses, etc. So it took 10 years in this country, plus the death of President McKinley, and he died of sepsis, so blood bacteria. It took 10 years plus the death of that president for the United States, the American Medical Association, to say, do you think we should pay attention to what they're doing over in Britain? And you know what it was? Hand washing. To prevent the spread of disease.
Yeah.
Hand washing. We're far. We're a punitive country, and doctors will laugh in your face, including my face, even though I'm in the profession, I'm in the medical profession. They'll laugh and just say, good luck with that. Or they just don't even believe that with a vegan diet that I could be this healthy. They really believe, I don't know what they think. So at age approximately 55, I fell down a flight of stairs that were not carpeted at all. I didn't break anything and I didn't fracture anything. So I go to the doctor and she's like, oh, Jane, I can't believe it, given your age, you should, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at her and I said, but I'm vegan. She put her hand in my face. She didn't want to hear about it.
Yep.
Wow.
So even though it's in your face, you know, you can show the results. It changes so hard. But you know what I've noticed just recently?
What's that, Jane?
Harvard. So we have Harvard and we have Yale in New England that are like the Red Sox and the Yankees. I don't know how to compare it in Britain. I don't know if it's Oxford and something.
Oxford and Cambridge, yeah.
There you go. So a lot of times what we watch is if Harvard comes up with something, Yale poo-poos it and vice versa.
Right.
You know, because, you know, everyone wants to have come up with it themselves. Yeah. Well, Harvard has a specialty now called nutritional psychiatry. So let the games begin, and I think they're gonna start. I hope it doesn't take 10 years.
Let's hope
change.
not.
Yeah, I know.
Why do you think this is then, that there's this massive disconnect? Is it as simple as it's not profitable to talk about eating fruit and vegetables?
Not only is it not profitable, you know, that whole mentality of it's the way we always did it. My grandparents did it. They lived until they were 100. You know, people don't want to, like addiction, you know, no one wants to get addicted to heroin by themselves. They get weirded out, and you can almost see it. It's addictive behavior where they're like, you eat meat, right? Oh, and they want to, you know what people are? They need each other, and they really do need each other. And the way you see the ugliest behavior is in groups, and that's why every so often, like I had a fake fur scarf on, and I put it on Facebook as a new profile picture, and I went to bed, and the next day there were 80 comments, and I thought, oh my God, everybody must love my new picture. And instead I was screamed at about being a fake vegan, because they said if you're going to wear a faux fur scarf, you're encouraging other people to wear real fur. And I thought, you know, I occasionally have a veggie burger, but that doesn't mean I'm encouraging somebody to eat that. Though people will come up with anything to protect their culture and tradition, how it always has been. But yes, I think it's because if you paid attention to food, which remember Hippocrates said, let thy food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food.
And all of a sudden, we're poo-pooing all of this, but it's the pharmaceutical industries, which, don't get me wrong, I've taken medication and will continue in the future if I need it. But the big corporations that, for example, who made the, mess out of corn in this country, who made the mess with hydrogenated oils, etc.
It's all money.
Follow it. I looked at baby formula.
I know.
When one of our nieces had a baby. I just happened to pick up the formula just to look, and the first ingredient was corn syrup solids. Like, what is that, and why are we giving it to babies?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no profit, and then we as Americans
need PhDs in food and nutrition to read a label.
But we want everything now, and we want it yesterday. We want to pick up our phone, order something, and then we want somebody to deliver it within 5 minutes. We are trained to want immediate gratification. So when you talk to a patient about their diet, you're going to lose them. And so I hope this nutritional psychiatry specialty from Harvard is going to find some trickery to get people engaged in changing what they eat.
You've both obviously made this connection yourselves, and I take it that none of that has come from your formal learning, or has it? Was there any route of formal training?
Undergrad, I was very interested in a nutrition class, but you know what? I didn't even believe them, because they told me that watermelon was useless and corn was useless, and I disagree. The Native Americans, I don't know, thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them lived on corn. So what are you telling me it's useless for? And watermelon is loaded with water, and we need that. So yeah, I think you're right. What I think helped us was maybe the science, learning the microbiology and all of that. So when we got interested, we kind of could read some of this information and understand it.
But John Robbins' book, he spelled it out. I didn't realize it was that cruel, because when we were young, the commercials we were born in 1960. The commercials were these cartoons of animals insulted if you didn't eat them.
Oh, right.
And, it was constantly in your face. And the connection was so bizarre. I was blown away at age 35, I remember. And I didn't make the connection of dairy.
No.
Oh, because down the street when we were young, I finished that thought, there were cows, and the farmer, he always milked them by hand, and they pet them, and they roamed free, and we got to pet them if we wanted to, and it didn't look like it hurt. And I was actually blown away that right within 10 minutes of our house, I heard cows screaming, and that was about 6 years ago. And I finally found out from a friend that it was a dairy farm, and it was the girls were being milked. So, when Jane says we'll lose a patient when you talk about diet, we will. But I always found a way to throw in, even if it was a little bit of a joke, that I would say, I was reading the other day, everybody's mad at China because they eat any animal, dogs and cats, but America eats women and children. What's up with that? And I'd leave people to think about that, because nobody eats a bull or a rooster, or they eat veal.
The wild boar, somebody might want
they
that.
eat veal. Chickens are killed at a very young age, and then the girls, after 5 years, they're not ready to be milked anymore, and they go to slaughter. So basically, it's women and children.
Yeah.
And then they say China's barbaric. Hello, look in the mirror. Sorry. See, we need Jane as a buffer. Jane's a big buffer. What I call her.
No, not at all. You go for it. I'm with you. Thinking of that particular train of thought, just because we're there and we're talking about, as you mentioned there, the view of other cultures around the world, and thinking about the last 12 months in particular, and there's been an easy shorthand probably in the US, certainly in the UK, to say this pandemic is because of Chinese culture, not because of animal agriculture. There's been a very clear distinction between those two. It's because of eating bats, it's because of eating pangolins, it's because of this, it's because of wet markets. And I spoke to somebody recently who lives in New York, and she was sharing with me the number of live animal markets that she comes across on a daily, walk around the parts of the city. Do you think there is any pocket of that connection being made with animal agriculture and this pandemic in US culture from what you've seen, or is it that disconnect is right there?
No, complete disconnect. The only thing I've seen, of course, it's John Oliver.
Yeah, John Oliver.
He talked about, I'm not even sure, I think it was the pandemic, and I watched like 20 minutes or so, and I called Joan, I said, he said the words, animal agriculture or factory farming, instead of everybody else skirts around the issue. And in this country, I mean, we have a range of it's only the cars or the air conditioners, all the way to, for global warming, all the way to only God can change the weather. I mean, that's what we have, like, woo-hoo!
Yeah. There's a push to change the school
and I'm a little religious, but I can say that I find that ridiculous.
No, I just read there's several politicians in this country. They want to push for the school system, the curriculum to go back to when we were young. We didn't listen to the truth. We were taught. The kid was an exchange student from Japan. And he said, how do I know more history than all of you put together? And it was embarrassing. So June from Japan knew about our history, and it was very bothersome as we grew up. It wasn't until college that you actually started learning things, because in the small towns of the United States, it gets ugly. Yeah, it gets ugly on what we learn.
One of the other
disgusting.
things, and I would like to say once again, I believe in pharmaceuticals when you need them, and I will, we just got vaccinated, for COVID. So I totally can believe in that, but I just don't believe that it's the 100% solution. And what we have now is the pharmaceutical industry has their foot into medical schools. I'm sure big corporations, big businesses do with, these are the best gloves and masks and gowns right now. And then the dairy industry and just our FDA, the things that we block. It's really a shame, and until you take the whole dollar out of all of these equations, it's very difficult to engage a person in eating more healthfully.
Because I want to say something. It was around 1980, maybe it was maybe closer to 90, but the New Haven Register, the newspaper, had a joint study of Yale and Harvard, and they said that it was a study of 25 years, and they both determined that eating processed meats led to cancer. And then it was never heard from for like another 20 or 30 years. Even when the World Health Organization said, please, let's go plant-based, otherwise the world will not be able to sustain itself. Oh, it was in this tiny little area on the bottom back page somewhere where no one would have seen it. So I think that unless it goes mainstream, you're actually made fun of if you're vegan. If you're a man and you're vegan, oh, they'll call you a pussy. Oh, you are nothing. You're a girl. Even though you won't have the sexual dysfunction, and every client I had was getting younger and younger, and it's like, really, how old are you now? They were 35 years old asking for Viagra. 35. You should be at your prime. Well, maybe not for men. But you have sexual dysfunction, so they didn't want to hear it. It's all about circulation, but
and in this country, everything in the middle of the grocery aisles, which really means processed foods, and we have tons of processed foods. The literature's out that the corporations made it so that it was an addiction, so that you would keep coming back for more. And I lived it. I was such a I would have coffee, light and sweet. I would have a cake with heavy frosting. That would be my breakfast. I might have those processed peanut butter crackers at lunch. And then dinner, if I ate something healthy, I still would eat like the rest of the cake afterwards. One time when I was a kid, and it was such an addiction, it was crazy, but nobody spoke of it, so I didn't talk of it because I didn't know. I ate an entire bag of mini candy bars. I mean,
$1,000 bars.
I got sick, don't get me wrong, but I think that I ate the whole bag. It's amazing that eating disorders, thank goodness, weren't totally in vogue back then, because I would have had one. Because I really, the few times I vomit in my life, it's not like a scary thing for me.
Hi.
And so, again, thank goodness, because we have a visitor now.
Yeah. And you know what I want to say? I want to say is a lot of our clients always talked about weight, because Jane and I are thin, or whatever we are. And they would say, Joan, I want to talk to Jane about how to lose weight. And I would say, but why aren't you going to talk to me about it? Not only am I your therapist, but I'm thinner than she is. Yes. They didn't want to hear it. They all knew I was vegan, and it was almost as if it was impossible to follow, like Joan. I mean, it's not even that hard to eat. I want to say to people, it's as difficult to eat as when you eat meat, but I find it to be easier because I'm not so germophobic. Like when the animal flesh was in my apartment, I thought it was disgusting. Would you have to drown it in orange juice just to get the stench out?
And you know what? It's
gross.
Joni brings up a point. I was the cheater. So when I went vegan, I was only primarily vegan, and basically that meant that in the very beginning, if I wanted to go have eggs, I would do that. Whatever. So what I'd like to tell people is they don't have to switch from today to tomorrow to the, whole food, plant-based, 100% healthy. You can be primarily for a while. You can just, you could start with breakfast and just change your cow's milk to oat milk. I mean, you can make a change, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming.
But remember, if you're in therapy for 10 years, change is so difficult. They don't even want to change. Like, really, you ought to find a new therapist, because we're not changing here, Like, I'll try to change it up, but
there's the door. No, we're teasing.
We're teasing. We're just burnt out. We were really good therapists.
Talking of that point, and you mentioned that it's really difficult for people to, listen to the dietary advice from their therapist. That they'd rather that you said, well, just take this and you'll feel a lot better. Do you think in the world of therapy, and I appreciate I'm sure there's like a sort of sorority, fraternity of therapists. I don't want you to feel like you need to slate any other therapist, but is there probably a reluctance from therapists to say anything that might be deemed controversial to their client, like talk about your diet, because they might lose customers? Is that in people's minds or not?
Well, one of the things is, at least in our training, as therapists, you're really not supposed to tell anyone what to do. And even if they ask you, you might want to explore why they're even asking you before you would ever give. One of the worst nightmares for a therapist is when the patient comes in the following week and says, Jane, I did what you told me to do. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I
tell you?
I didn't. Like, I broke up with my boyfriend, and I'm thinking, I never said that.
No.
But when you get to the part...
But now that he's single, can I have his number?
When you get to the part where they are willing to start making some changes in their life, so you've gotten them a notch out of that depression or a notch lower anxiety, et cetera, or they're not manic anymore, and you start talking about healthy lifestyles, definitely you start exploring what they eat, how do they feel, and that's when you do it like Joan was saying, I found that,
Well, quite a few actually finally said it, maybe 2, they just wanted Viagra. But a lot of the guys were the ones that said, you know what, Joan, I'm ready. And they would want, like when we were at the grocery store, they'd want us to show them pictures of because I'll eat some processed vegan foods, but, the ingredients, whatever soy protein isolate is, I don't want your isolate at all, unless I'm going to take a vitamin that I choose. I don't like the word isolate. Don't give it to me. But, in Canada, like when the food was really easy to buy and eat, I could easily tell dudes, because they want to know, I need something easy. I want to be able to be plant-based and it be easy. Well, it's not that easy in the United States, because we have a lot of soy protein isolate and concentrate.
And in our poorer neighborhoods, which are brown and black, for the most part, there's a significantly decreased availability or access to real food.
Yep.
And I mean, we've seen that in documentaries where it's believed that that is done on purpose, and I would hope that it's not true, but it seems like it is true. So the poorer people don't have access, not just to medical care, et cetera, but they don't have access to organic, they don't have access to real fruits and vegetables. A lot of processed stuff is right there because they're going to convenience stores. A lot of times there's no bus route. There's not even a bus line to a real grocery store.
So, but remember, when people are poor, and a lot of our clients were poor, you could also do, rice and beans to start. You don't have to have a ton of money to be vegan. You don't.
Yeah.
Go get real food.
But there's almost this, well, not even almost, there is this sort of systematic, by design, these deserts, if you like, food deserts. Yeah. So talking of that, this systematic kind of by design nature of that, and I want to go back to this point around you mentioned about the sort of distrust of science, yet the desire to medicate. There's a kind of there's an irony in that, and a kind of a paradox, and so on and so forth. And obviously the right, there's been a battleground in the US, and still is, and there is in the UK too, between the kind of quote unquote right and left. And I sometimes look at this and wonder, are they, I look at recently, for example, that there's been a massive bailout for dairy and the dairy and meat industries in the States, some huge number within the billions from the Biden administration. And I wonder whether there's an element of in the left that we can, I'll say we, that me from that perspective, we can think, well, the job's done because Trump's not in office anymore, so things will be all great and rosy from here on in, and actually people can switch off and become complacent and not keep, I suppose, fighting some of these inequalities in certain groups. Would you say that's true, or is that not necessarily it? That ultimately the system they're two sides of actually the same coin. Just that,
right. I have a theory, and it's just a theory, and I could be dead wrong. But I believe that we have these two major parties that go out for drinks after they have screwed a lot of the country. So I believe that each party will say, "Yeah, I'm going to do a little of this. Oh, I'm going to do a little of that," and they keep us fighting. I mean, right now, it's been the worst since with Trump versus Biden, the worst I've ever heard. I mean, I've known people that, the wife is a Republican, the husband's a Democrat. I mean, you have siblings, and everybody got along. And more recently,
this has been the worst,
in the United States, it's gotten very hateful. Yeah. And I think it's one big soap opera. They've got us fighting so that we are distracted, so that they can just, these big money, whoever, follow the dollar, follow the dollar, and they're going to keep dumping in oceans. They're going to keep bailing out, for example, the dairy industry. Mm-hmm. You notice that was not the major news.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I didn't even hear that, but thank you
for telling us that.
Well, it's going on in the UK
definitely
too.
Not on the major news.
Yes.
And if it was at the very end when the music started or something. Yeah.
I mean, welcome to capitalism. It's sad.
And they try
it was an excellent
people.
idea, to have the money at the top trickle down. But the greed for money, we all know, just is the root to all evil.
Talking of the route to money, I'm thinking veganism's become, I'm reluctant to say popular, but it's certainly grown. I think the number's like 3 or 4-fold in the last 10 years and that kind of thing. Like there's some big growth. But with that has come, you talk about soy isolate and so on. There's become a lot of processed food, which people in the quote unquote vegan community are heralding as, isn't this brilliant? Does that kind of thing worry you? I mean, obviously the sort of, the animals win in that regard, and that's brilliant. As an animal activist sort of first, I think that's fantastic. From an environmental standpoint, I hope that the impact is still as great. I'm sure it is, but I worry from a health point of view. We're just storing up a new problem. I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Absolutely. What has grown here, we as nurses know that too much protein will overload and kill your kidneys. Why are there kidney dialysis facilities in almost every strip mall? That was rare back in the day. So we knew that too much protein and the misunderstood Atkins diet would kill your kidneys. So
and every nurse knows that when you have patients that have compromised kidneys, every nurse knows the diet to discuss with the patient.
That's the anti-inflammatory diet.
And it is a low protein and among other things like low potassium and stuff like that. But we know it. And so if we know it, doctors know it,
so
PAs know it.
They'll never lose the money. The people that are making the money right now, they're not going to lose their money. So the soy protein isolate is this bulk powder form, and all I view it as a hamster in a wheel to my liver. I don't want that in my body. It's going to overload my kidney. I don't like when people say, oh, it's so much easier now I can just, I couldn't date somebody who was just eating soy protein isolate, just as I couldn't date anybody that was eating just meat. I mean, we don't see you, but we're supposed to just continue, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, good, because I want to tell you something. My niece once said to me, Joni, how do you get every guy you date to be vegan? And I said, well, as an older woman, I'll tell you. You sleep with them first, initially. You get them hooked, and then you turn that off until they become vegan. And that one guy, that last guy, a day. He went vegan in a day. So it can be done.
There are more powerful.
So there you go. That's how I do it.
And that's if women rule things.
Yeah.
But you know what? One of the things Joan was talking about was that soy protein isolate, that bulk powder. That's all protein. And in this country, we have that protein myth where everyone thinks, you can't be plant-based. Where do you get your protein?
Oh my God.
When obviously the question is, I'm getting plenty of protein. It's where are you getting your fiber? Because you need it. Your gut needs it, and your gut is holding the health to every process that's going on at the cellular level in your body. It's crazy. We have that thing called leaky gut. Do you guys have that in the UK? Yeah, that's all from the bad bacteria. The whole microbiome is totally messed up, and it just makes everything kind of not work right.
And the diseases that didn't exist when we were in nursing school. So I've been out of nursing school since 84, I think 82 for Jane. And I was embarrassed getting report when somebody mentioned GERD and what else did they mention?
Fibromyalgia.
And fibromyalgia. I'm like, what's that? I had to look it up. I didn't even know.
Well, none of us knew what it was.
Because in nursing school, they used to say that if somebody's belching or having a hard time with their digestion, the nurse was supposed to sit down and tell them how to eat an anti-inflammatory diet, not how to take a pill. Joan?
Oh, and here's my own observation, no study whatsoever, but like Joan said, we've been nurses since the 80s, and fibromyalgia started coming out in terms of us hearing about it mid 80s sometime, okay? Every patient, not 90%, but 100% of patients that I have ever met with the diagnosis of fibromyalgia, when you ask them what they eat, it's not good food. It's a more processed and very few fruits and vegetables. And they'll admit it, they'll say, I eat like an adolescent boy. And they just don't eat right.
I don't think they discussed that with me.
Again, what that's doing is destroying the whole gut bacteria community down there. And if you're not able to break down the food that you're putting into your body for nutrition and to go throughout the entire body to nourish it, then how are you going to get healthy? How are you going to stay healthy? So that's that.
Thinking about the this, like I say, this rise in vegan culture, this obsession with protein, the division within society, etc. I'm thinking of social media and your perspective on it, because particularly as mental health professionals, as well as people involved in that industry, I see obviously some benefits. I think, from the rise of veganism and the information point of view, I think about the amount of easily packageable information, like Seaspiracy, for example, has just come out, and it's dead easy to share a story from with a video clip on Instagram or whatever, and get through to X amount of thousand viewers, and hook people with, oh my god, I didn't realize that was going on. It's brilliant. But on the flip side, you've got this, like I say, obsession with protein, division politically, families at war with one another, image conscious, sort of obsessive kind of natures in folks, and real struggles with mental health. What's your view on the role of social media from the perspective of mental health professionals? Where do you think it sort of sits?
Oh, for mental health, unfortunately, I think that it worsens people's depression, because they look at other people and think, oh, wow, I'm not doing any of that. And in their life or their bodies or whatever it is they're looking at, they get sadder. They don't realize, like, we have people that we know that, I don't know when they're living, because they're actually filming it all the time. Yep. But I think that for that, it makes people feel worse. And I think that I love all the vegan stuff, but from what I've heard from my own clients, that it overwhelmed them because it wasn't easy. And if you suffer from depression or anxiety, it's like this vicious circle.
Or everything's a Buddha bowl, and I don't like Buddha bowls.
But I'll tell you what a client said. She actually said she's vegan now, and I thought, probably because what I used to say. And I said, how come? She said, well, I was thinking about how I suffer from anxiety and depression, and I watched a video on how animals suffer from such severe anxiety and depression. Why would I do that, and why would I eat those hormones at the time when they're being killed? And I thought, is that all I had to say to you? Like, I had that in the back of my head. I'm thinking, bitch, you're eating that, like they suffer from anxiety and depression too, but anything. So for that aspect of social media, if you get one thing out of something, you heard it 9 times over there, but that guy said it and you heard it, I'm grateful for that, because more people will go vegan.
And I think that with social media, and I want to include, like billboards or Times Square in New York, what's in lights. If you do the shock value where you show, say, a pig being slaughtered, you're going to get people turning away, and then you're going to lose those people too. I think the more subtle things, or like one of the things, our sister Lori used to make her own vegan meatballs, and I think it was that, and she would bring them to every party she went to, and people then started asking her, hey, I really liked those, and I'm trying to maybe lose weight or something, and give me the recipe. So I think by example, showing by example, and maybe like Joan said, making it a little bit easier, less in your face. Well, because I really do get, what I get turned off on with the social media stuff is, and I know they have to fall into it to compete, but 13 high protein vegan meals. Well, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, keep your protein, because I'm fond of my kidney. Both of them.
Talking of that, I mean, you mentioned there, and it was a positive example, but somebody watching a clip, getting some information that they might have heard in 10 different ways before, but this was the one that landed for them when they were, on the bus or whatever, and they'd seen that on their phone. In your experience, again, from the therapy perspective, and as people involved in the medical health industry, etc., like, do you see has there been a rise in kind of people desperate to diagnose themselves and kind of almost tell you where they're at based on what they've seen? Because there's so much information out there that everybody's now got an ailment of some description. Everybody fits into a bucket of, I think I've got this, or do you see a lot of that? Is that something that troubles you?
I don't. It doesn't trouble me as much as a Buddha bowl does.
But again, in our our training, we were taught that. What we were taught, remember Penny, she said, you are going to have people that have more, it could possibly have more education than you do, more access to certain things that are new in mental health. And don't be opposed to that, because, you know, you walk into a doctor's office and they think he or she knows everything. That's a big turnoff. So I'm open to it. I mean, some people used to come in and demand an antipsychotic because they were tricked on television and they thought it was for depression. And then, no, I'm going to step in and say, really, you want an antipsychotic? Like, we could consider that.
And, you know, a lot of, you know, speaking of what the pharmaceutical companies are doing, and they're brilliant, don't get me wrong, is the antipsychotics, the newer ones, do treat depression and anxiety very, very well. And they're getting approved for certain things, especially that buzzword, bipolar depression. But I used to like when a patient would come in and say, I'm bipolar. And then what I would say is, it's going to take us a little while now to diagnose that, because that is, you don't, first of all, don't want that label if you don't have to have it. And a lot of times they're just talking about
A temper.
having a temper, and with females.
And who doesn't have a temper?
The females, that it's always around their periods and their menses, and you know, with men, it was their temper. It was associated with alcohol or something.
Insomnia. But what they forget in other offices to ask is, you know, with bipolar disorder, you don't require the sleep. You're pleased. You're up and productive. The person, you know, like me, if I didn't get enough sleep, sure, I haven't slept in a few days, but I want my sleep and I feel exhausted. But no one asks that. Oh, if you've been incarcerated, oh, you're bipolar. They don't even ask you a question.
In this country, you know what happened was,
what happened?
What happened
Jane?
was we all underdiagnosed bipolar disorder.
Right.
And then you get lots and lots of literature and education, and like most things is now in my opinion, we've overdiagnosed bipolar disorder in patients. And the saving grace in psychiatry is, you know, if you learn one or two things about the medicines, and you know you can go to these atypical antipsychotics because they treat everything, you probably aren't going to do any harm to patients. But back on the topic, I used to love when clients would come in and say, I have this or I have that, and then we'd go through it all together over time and figure out if they really did have it or if it was something else.
But antipsychotics don't help a poor diet, and they can actually induce a metabolic syndrome. So they're not benign meds. None of them are benign.
No.
Like, we all should be careful about what we put in our body. Oh, that's the other thing when people say, oh, you're so fussy. Well, thank God I don't shovel everything and anything in my body. I mean, you can eat a Volkswagen if you want to over little periods of time. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records, but that's not food. What do you eat? I eat food.
Would that be, you know, the staples that you would advise anybody to start with, whether it be physically unhealthy, mentally unhealthy? Would it always start with nutrition for you? You know, what are those kind of like those key pillars that you'd always look at?
Are you talking about diet, though?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody came to you
general?
with a mental health kind of problem, maybe they came to you with it, you know, there was even if you encountered somebody who had a physical health problem, would you always start with kind of diet, exercise, etc., before you went anywhere near medication? You know, would that be a general rule of thumb, or?
Unfortunately, no, because some people say if you bring it up, I'm going to leave. If you bring my weight up or anything that goes into my mouth, I'm going to get up and walk out. It's so taboo here. We've almost glorified obesity as, what do they call it, oversized plus, and that's almost like politically incorrect to even address obesity. People are so sensitive about their weight. I often get from mothers, if a mother comes into a session, they would say, really, you're going to treat my daughter and you're anorexic? Like, I'll be called anorexic even though I am not as skinny as I could be and still have a BMI, normal BMI. So what we forget is, what Jane and I will do is YouTube the band America, it's called, back in the 70s, and the men had arms like me, you know, thin, and no one had breasts. Well, the women had breasts, but the men didn't have breasts, and everyone was so thin. And now we we have moved to, I'm the unhealthy one. People will look at me and say, oh, I'm worried about you, Joan. Really worry about yourself and how you can't button your pants.
Thank goodness there is a trend, in my opinion, that some practitioners, whether they're prescribers or not prescribers, that do explore healthy lifestyles with people. Which, between diet and exercise, and, just so you know, Joan and I, most patients really liked us because we do not go to the gym. We don't do all that cardio. We do like the little old lady from the past where you do a little bit of walking and weight bearing with the walking.
I figured I exercised my whole life. My anxiety was so bad. I had post-traumatic stress from birth. And the fact that I never stopped moving, I don't need to exercise because what I need to do is stop moving, sit. I need somebody to knock me out is what I need. But yeah, I love being vegan though. And it would always come in first as a joke because with humor, people will hear you a little bit more. Yeah. But to them, like a bean isn't even food. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with this country. Everything is a burger.
You know what? No one sleeps. And if you go a certain amount of time without sleep, God forbid, years without good sleep, you can carry lots of different diagnoses that aren't even true.
Right.
And then patients of ours would go have sleep studies. And first of all, there are a handful of people, and they go to the sleep specialist. They sleep over, right?
Yeah.
And there's a handful of people that actually never fall asleep. And that's so sad. Do you know that they don't get any treatment whatsoever because apparently no one knows how to help people sleep. We don't even know why we have to sleep. We know we have to sleep. We don't know why we have to sleep because all the vital organs are working while you're sleeping anyway. But we know with a lack of sleep, initially you're going to get giddy and happy, and at a certain point you will get highly anxious and go into a psychosis.
And vicious.
Hello. So that's the funny part in America is go for a sleep study and they'll tell you that you are dependent on benzodiazepines or sleep hypnotics, and that's not a good idea. So try to get the prescriber to take you off of that. But that nobody really is helping us sleep. And of course, stress. And America, 40-hour work week is nothing. Do those time changes and pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and don't you dare get into a little car accident because of lack of sleep. Eat all this processed food and it's meaningless. It's fine. Your body's fine because we have a medicine for you. There.
Okay. I don't remember what your question was, but I hope she answered it.
Where does all this end? How do we move forward? What's your advice for folks listening?
I think that if you find somebody that you admire and anybody. For men, I always mention David Hay, the boxer. Yeah, I always mention certain men, just look at them. They've got the muscles or whatever. Women, they're always talking about weight loss. So I think for everyone, we need to...
I think we need to be part of the solution.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because there's so many problems. And we can complain and go places and take medicines, etc. But if you're part of the solution, I think that's where the real change comes from. And we have access with these phones of ours. We have access to a lot of information. And I've gotten mixed messages out there too. Eggs are good for you, eggs are bad for you. The cholesterol in eggs are equally as bad as animal. The cholesterol in eggs, your liver, the human liver doesn't really like it, so eat the eggs. We get totally conflicting messages out there. But the information is out there, and people can, eat an egg every day for a week, and then eat for breakfast. And the next week, see how you feel. And the next week, eat oatmeal every day with blueberries for a week. See how you feel. And be your own product of change.
Yeah, and don't let culture and tradition hold you hostage. People are afraid of that too, because that's how it's always been. That's a good message. I think Dr. Greger, I think, said that. David Greger, I think that's his name.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that. Too. Don't be held hostage.
That's right.
I think it's a great place to to pause. Whereabouts would folks go about finding out a little bit more about you? I know you've got an awesome website,
therapytwins.com, or on every social media. It's Therapy Twins. That's it. At Therapy Twins. One word.
Amazing. Well, I'll link that in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing chatting with you. I've learnt lots myself, and if anything, you've piqued my interest to get more involved and perhaps stop eating so much soy isolate. So,
Okay.
Thank you so much.
One day at a time. Thanks.